Hello, viewers. Welcome to another episode of Sales Gambit. I'm your host, Ashish, CEO of Convin, a conversation intelligence platform for the sales team. In today's episode of Sales Gambit, we have Darryl Praill, CRO at VanillaSoft, member and host at Peak Community. Darryl is one of the LinkedIn's top 32 sales leader and also an award-winning content creator. In today's episode, we will be talking about the importance of bridging the gap between sales and marketing and how exactly do you do it. Welcome to Sales Gambit, Darryl. We are really excited to have you today.
My friend, I thank you for having me. I'm excited. I'm really actually genuinely excited. You know what I did for you? I went and shaved, so I made sure I looked pretty. That's how important this is.
Definitely. No, I think our audience would love it. Great. So, Darryl, we'd love to begin with our audience getting to know you better, just have a personal connection with you. Would you like to tell us about your sales career and then the journey from CMO to a CRO?
Sure, I'll try to keep it short because, I'm old and I've had a long journey. And so therefore lots has happened. Yeah. But for those who don't know me, my name is Darryl Praill. As you just heard, I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at VanillaSoft, but I wasn't always the Chief Revenue Officer. In fact, my education and training at university, I was a computer programmer, and that's literally what I went to school for. And I finished my university degree, and I did not want to do coding because I'd seen all my cool friends become total computer geeks. And I'm like, that's not for me. So what do I do? And everybody said, you should go in sales. And I'm like, okay. And when you're 21, 22 years old, you have no idea what that means. So my first sales job ended up being selling photocopiers door to door. So I had to go buy a minivan so I could put the photocopiers in the minivan, and I would go into industrial strip malls and I would go knock on doors to the mechanic, and I would be wearing my best suit that you can afford, which isn't very good at that age, and try to sell them a photocopier. It was awful. And I did that for 6 months, and I said, this is hard, this sucks, I'm not making any money. And I went back to coding, and I did that for 4 or 5 years. But the heart knows what the heart knows, which meant I was good at coding, but I like talking to people. I like engaging. And so I went from coding to become a sales engineer, which is, boom. So I've done the sales engineer, the solution selling thing. And then from there, I went to product management, product marketing, and marketing. And then I know that's how it went. That's how and I love marketing. But then, you go to another gig and you're doing selling again. So I did this back and forth a few times. And before you know it, I'm a VP of marketing. And then all of a sudden, the head of sales leaves and they turn to you and they said, you've done sales, you've done marketing. We like you, you know our stuff. You're the VP of sales and marketing.
Yeah.
And so that happened multiple times. And so I've been a VP of sales, I think 4 times. But then I took some time off. For a few years, I had my own marketing agency, and then VanillaSoft came knocking and recruited me to be Chief Marketing Officer. Cool company, great product, great technology. I couldn't say no. It was a deal I couldn't turn down. And then about 2.5 years into the gig, it was time for a change. They made a change internally. They let the head of sales go, and they turned to me and they said, "Will you be our first ever Chief Revenue Officer?" And it's been a blast. So there you go. I've done sales, I've done marketing. I have herded cats, sometimes well, sometimes not so well, but I do definitely understand what's involved in both jobs and how to make the teams work together.
Interesting. So you not only have been a CMO and then a CRO, it's also starting from the scratch, which is like being a software engineer, then a product manager,
Correct.
Product marketing guy, and then eventually becoming a CRO. That's amazing.
And the best thing about that, whether you're in sales or marketing, is that when the coders say, hey, we need this feature, when I say, we need this feature to sell something, and they say, oh no, that's going to take 6 months. You can say, that's BS. I know that's like a 2-week deal, and this is why. So it's kind of funny. The background has come in handy, especially as revenue operations, sales operations, marketing operations, revenue operations has become kind of the third leg in that stool. You have sales, you have marketing, you have rev ops. Having that technical background has proven invaluable.
Definitely, it really helps. I have a very specific question that I want to, and again, now that we have understood what is your background, who better to answer this question that I'm going to ask you? Sales and marketing are the functions that generate revenue, as basic as that, right?
Yep.
But when I was reading an article at Inc.com, and it mentioned that these are like 2 different tires under a car, and they have to work together in order for the car to move forward, right? I thought that was a great analogy, right? If you think about it, it should happen like that only. But in most of the cases, we have figured out, or we have heard, that sales and marketing generally are not aligned. At least when the company starts and they are growing, and they are still figuring out the stuff for a very large time. And this can happen even to the bigger companies as well. Like, why do you think there is a gap, and where does this gap originate from?
I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh. I've lived this gap many times when I've been head of sales, and things don't go well. You blame the marketers. When you're head of marketing and sales aren't going well,
Yeah.
you blame the sales folks. So I know it. I lived it. Okay. So let's answer the question. Where does the gap come from and why? The gap comes from they are just two totally different jobs. Marketing is top of funnel, right? So they have a very different job than sales, which is bottom of funnel. Top of funnel is find anybody who's got a pulse out there and do lots of things: paid media, content marketing, event marketing, industry analysts, communications, to try to get anybody to pay attention and show you some love and express some interest. Whereas bottom of funnel is you're actually solution selling. You're trying to do discovery. You're trying to actually bring in the buying committee. You're trying to actually anticipate and overcome objections. Marketing doesn't deal with objections, not in the same way the salesperson does. And therefore, they're speaking two different languages, right? So sales would love marketing to give them leads that are basically ready to close. Sales reps can be lazy. Let's just call a spade a spade. Marketing can equally be lazy. Marketing can say, well, they stopped by the trade show booth, therefore, and they took a free toy, therefore, that's a lead, go close it. And so they get so caught up in their own personal needs and their own metrics of success. And they want to lash out and blame others when things aren't going well. It's never my fault, it's your fault. So especially when the heat comes down from on top, right? If sales aren't being met, sales is going to say it's marketing's fault, the leads suck. Or if marketing gets, $1 million or $2 million or $5 million in budget to go spend for the year to do all these great campaigns, and they don't generate much in the way of sales, well, why is that? Instead of saying our campaigns were stupid, they say, no, it's sales. So that's what you have competing agendas. Now, that's just people being people. And the only way to overcome that is to find commonality. So what do these two camps share in common? Mm-hmm. And maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but let me kind of give you the end game. What they share in common is that they both have responsibility for revenue. All right. So it's not, don't look at it as leads, don't look at it as sales, revenue. We both have revenue. Correct. When you have a shared belief, a shared cause, well, now it's different. Instead of you being, black and I'm white, polar opposites. No. Now we're like a sports team, and you're playing defense and I'm playing offense. So you're the goalkeeper and I'm the striker, whatever it might be. We have positions, and when we work together, then we can achieve revenue. We can win the game. So you have to align them on the roles they play on the shared goal, so they understand the handoff, they understand the playbook, shared playbook, shared values, shared way of measuring success. That changes the whole dynamic.
Interesting. Have you ever imagined about building a function, extending this entire thing towards the fact that okay, sales and marketing are just one function. They cannot be two different functions. Is this thought way off the base, or something that someone would have tried out and failed devastatingly, and that's why you are not doing it?
It would have failed years ago. I think it's inevitable. Mm-hmm. I think that's why that transition is happening now. And I'll give you an example, a couple of different signs that it's happening. But it's not there today. You're probably still, I would bet you, 10 years out. Sure. But a couple of signs that it's happening. Look at me. I'm not the VP of sales. I'm not the VP of marketing. I'm the chief revenue officer, right? So the whole role of the chief revenue officer is fairly new. Now, another one. I'm the chief revenue officer who's more of a marketer than he is a salesperson. Yeah. A marketer being in charge of revenue, that would have been hearsay years ago, like burned at the stake. That never happens. All right. Yeah. Look at sales reps today. Sales reps, what do? They do social selling. But isn't social media owned by marketing? Yeah. Look at those same sales reps. Sales reps, they do nurtures. cadences, sequences, call them what you will, but wasn't it marketing that did nurtures? Look at sales reps. Sales reps will tell you their open rates. Sales reps will optimize their email or their social touches based on word count, based on conversion rates, based on proven templates. Sales reps never did that before. Sales reps are becoming marketers. Look at the function of the sales development rep, the sales development role, the team. Over a third of organizations have that function underneath marketing now, not underneath sales, and that number's growing because they realize it's another step in the qualification process. First, marketing finds the lead, then they marketing qualify the lead, then they have to sales qualify the lead. And once it's sales qualified, okay, now we're going to give it to the account executive to go close. So you're seeing all of these trends move closer and closer together. Sales is becoming more like marketing, marketing is becoming more like sales. And then here's the thing, one last trend. We used to have sales ops or marketing ops, but now it's all morphed into revenue ops. You're seeing that tech stack and the workflow and the process be united as well. So they're totally merging. It's inevitable, I think, but there you go. That's my opinion. I don't know. Do you share it? Do you agree?
I think you're actually making a correct point. My perception that these two functions are now merging together is also fueled by product-led growth that I'm looking at.
Yep.
In most of the world out there now, there is a product-led growth, at least in terms of SaaS products that we are talking about here. A lot of growth is now shifting to product-led growth. So probably marketing will make sure that someone comes in, they sign up on the product, and then once they have activated the product for themselves, the sales comes into picture. And I think that if these two organizations don't probably work together, there's no way you're going to convert a lot of it. My understanding is that product-led growth is inevitable. And for that to happen properly in an organization, you really need to have sales and marketing working together to be able to, achieve and scale around that. Do you agree with that thought process? Have you seen product-led growth impacting or making sure that the conversions happen even faster?
So I'll be that guest you hate. So yes, I agree with the premise. What I don't agree with is the premise that product-led growth is new. Okay. Product-led growth has always been there. It's always been there. It's like saying ABM is driving the bus. That's what's new. Well, no, ABM used to be called targeted account selling, and IBM did it in the 90s. Before it was targeted account selling, it was called something else. Yeah. Product-led growth has always been there. Trust me, we didn't try to sell something that wasn't supporting the product, or the product didn't feed. If we were given a product that only had red features, we weren't selling stuff that had blue features, so to speak. So that's where I will push back a little bit. I think this is just the latest and greatest marketing buzz people are using to get some kind of, hype and traction on. But I do agree that product is another way of creating alignment. So I talked about revenue aligned sales and marketing from disparate agendas to a shared agenda. Yeah. Product or product-led growth is another way of creating unity, creating a shared sense of values, a shared purpose, a shared philosophy that brings teams together. So on this, we totally agree.
Got it. Do you think customer retention can be looked at as another excess of aligning sales and marketing? Customer retention?
Yes.
Or
yes.
Consistent messaging for that matter?
Both of no, them? I think it's essential. So typically a CRO, not always, but typically a CRO would own sales and marketing and customer success. Yeah. So, and the reason is it's the whole customer journey, right? From prospect through the we call it the dating, the marketing process, where we're nurturing them to get to know us, through the sales process, and now they're being onboarded and they're being supported and developed in the post-sale process. That's their lifetime journey. And customer success is all about managing churn, right? That's the big thing, because if you don't control churn, therefore you have a bad customer experience, churn becomes high, you're losing too many sales. Now, sales and marketing are the ones that have to go backfill that. Our quota doesn't go away. So if we have to sell $1 million create $1 million in net new revenue this year, but we lose $100,000 due to churn, then we really need to close $1.1 million because we have to backfill that. So that because we are picking up, if they drop the ball in customer success, then we're part of it. Similarly, If we misrepresent the product in the marketing and the sales side, no matter what customer success does, they're going to sure. I thought I was buying blue, but now when customer success is onboarding me, I realize I've got red. Yeah. I'm confused, right? So success is going to be as involved with us to make sure we manage customer expectations in that whole process. So absolutely, those three teams totally united.
Got it. One question that might sound offbeat, but very important to cover here only. How important is the alignment of sales and marketing for messaging, for proper messaging that is being sent outside? You can say, across the product or the marketing or the sales, right? How important is it to have proper alignment? And what are the problems that happen if this alignment is not there?
I'm laughing because it's a great question. It's not offbeat, it's not tangential, it is spot on. So the answer, as you might guess, is it is massive. Mm-hmm. And the reason it's massive is multiple. So let me just use something simple. Simple example everybody can relate to. Whether you're a sales or marketing, or you're a software engineer, or you clean houses for a living, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
If you go to a search engine, Google, Bing, whatever, and you type in a search term, I'm looking for blue squirrels, and you see all these matches, and that first hit looks like it could be blue squirrels, and you click on it, and up on the website comes all these green squirrels. The first thing you do is you go, how the hell I'm looking for blue squirrels, there's green squirrels, and you bounce, you leave.
Yeah.
Okay, that's an example of bad messaging. I knew I was looking for blue squirrels. I thought I saw blue squirrels. I was led to believe, based on this paid ad, that it was blue squirrels. But when I went to the site, it was green squirrels, and I'm confused, and I'm just leaving. We've all done that. Yeah. That's the same in sales and marketing. If marketing is out there leading with a message, speaking at trade shows, appearing in the press, appearing on social media, appearing in Google AdWords, pay-per-click, social advertising, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, saying a certain message, and it hooks that prospect, and that prospect gets qualified by marketing and says, yep, here you go, sales. And now sales tries to do a discovery, and they're expecting they're using a completely different message. Sales is confused, the prospect is confused, and then boom, the prospect leaves. And then sales is going, marketing, you suck. And marketing is going, no, look at us. They were totally MQL. They matched the score. We did it great. Sales, you suck.
Yeah.
And both sides here's the thing, both sides are doing their job perfectly. Yeah. The common denominator that's causing misalignment is the message. So you need to have the message. And that's where one of the things I really love is with the proliferation of tools like conversational intelligence, both sales and marketing can now listen to these calls, and but they're listening for different things. The sales reps are listening for, did I use the right, qualifiers? Did I guide the conversation? Did I handle the objections right? Marketing is listening for, what were the pain points being expressed? What was the language used? How did they describe it? What was the consequences? So they can get that messaging aligned throughout. And that's the beauty, again, going to RevOps, being the person that unites sales and marketing together, that three-legged stool. That's what's one of the features that's really changed the game to create alignment amongst those two teams. But historically, I cannot tell you how many times over the years, sales would completely ignore marketing. And when you called them on it, they would say, I'm the sales guy. I'm the guy talking to real people. Marketing, you never talk to people. You hide behind advertisements. I talk to people. Yeah. And the message I have is right. And the beauty is social media should have eliminated that. Marketing is talking to people now, should be talking to people now, as much as, maybe more than, sales is.
Makes sense. A very interesting question that, I can extend basis the current conversation that we are having here is, we have established that there is a gap that exists generally between sales and marketing. And we have also established that this gap can cause a lot of issues for the business.
Yep.
Third thing that I want to really ask from first principles is, how do you identify that there is a gap? When you're caught up in day-to-day work and you are, everyone is just trying to hit their quotas in sales, and marketing guys is just generate the leads. And then you are looking as a CRO from everything from the top, right? How do you recognize or identify that there are red flags and there is a gap which you immediately need to go in and solve?
Okay, so there's some, how do I put this? There's some very hard, obvious, concrete signs. Mm-hmm. Very tangible signs, and then there's some somewhat soft, indirect signs that you can recognize, and one usually leads to the other. So The first way you're going to realize that there's a problem is by looking at the numbers. What is the conversion of marketing sourced leads into sales? That's the first thing, right? So if you're finding and then and even more so is how does that conversion rate compare to sales sourced leads?
Got it.
All right. If you're it could, outbound. You got it. Outbound. You got it. So if you're finding the conversion rate of sales is much higher than the conversion rate of marketing, and that's possible because often sales is using targeted accounts, ABM, et cetera. Yeah. But if it's like disproportionately different, that's your first sign that something is not right with the leads marketing is giving sales. All right, that's your first sign. And now you start to explore it, okay? So now you start to look at some of the softer signs that there's a disconnect. How often do these two teams meet? How often are they in meetings together, right? If I were to poll any of the sales reps and ask them, what content do they use on a regular basis? Show me the presentations you share. Show me the social media posts that you utilize, et cetera, that kind of stuff. And if it's all their own and not marketing, that's a problem. If I were to go to marketing and say, I'm sensing there's a problem here, who have you talked to on sales recently about this? And they say, nobody. Okay, no problem. What deals are we supporting sales on right now? Maybe some additional content, maybe we're doing some referrals for them, maybe we're hooking up an interview with an analyst, like maybe we're sending them some swag, maybe we got the executives of the company connecting with them on LinkedIn. What are the deals that marketing is supporting right now? And if the answer is none, then we've got a problem here. There are other signs like this, but these are the obvious signs. The biggest sign you're probably going to encounter this is if you do not have an SLA, service level agreement, between sales and marketing, because the SLA makes this all go away. And I can explain that if you want me to, or we can move on.
I would love to spend 2 minutes on SLA and what does that mean between sales and marketing?
Okay, so the SLA is just basically what I call the rules of engagement. That says if the two teams are going to work together cohesively in alignment to achieve the same shared goal, revenue, these are the rules that we work on. And the best example I can give people is we have like the Geneva Convention. Basically, those are the rules of war. Yeah. If we're going to go to war, my country against your country, we agree to these rules. We will not use poisonous gas as an example. Rules of war. Okay, so some of the SLAs should be pretty straightforward. First thing you're going to do in an SLA is the head of sales and head of marketing are going to get together and they're going to agree on the definition of a lead. What is it that marketing is giving sales? And that is often your starting point, because that's often sales want something ready to close. Marketing will want something that's hardly qualified at all because it's easier. So what's the definition of lead? That's the first part. Next part is how quickly will sales respond to a new lead coming in? Within minutes, within an hour, within 4 hours, 8 hours, a day, 2 days, a week? So you have to agree to that response time. Next thing is how many attempts will sales make on a marketing sourced lead? So they may respond within an hour, but if they only try twice, chances are nothing's going to happen with that. These are all the things that are driving conversion ratios, which was the hard symptoms up front. So these are a few of the signs. Next things might be content. What does marketing step up to and to agree to what types of content and the frequency of content? Next thing you're going to agree on is what is the ideal customer profile? Who is it we're selling to? Then you're agreeing on who are the target personas, head of sales, head of marketing, whomever, or you're going to figure them out. And you're going to agree to the definitions of that, because in the ICP and in the persona, you start to identify the messaging, the pains, the issues that they're having. So then marketing makes content that speaks to those people in those industries, just like sales verbally has a conversation and they're sharing a dictionary, for lack of a better word. So the SLA, it can go on, but those are the high level things. And when sales and marketing agree to the terms, those terms, then you start to have alignment. But the last thing an SLA needs, and this is really important, is consequences. Okay, if I don't do my part or you don't do your part as a, according to these terms in the SLA, our agreement, who is the great tiebreaker? And often it's going to be the CEO of the company or maybe a COO, and they can come in, they can drop the hammer. One more thing that they often agree to is shared metrics, so that we don't have this my opinion, your opinion thing. Let's make a shared dashboard that we all consult, and and we agree with the numbers and the formula and where those numbers are being sourced from as being the record of truth. So if you don't have metrics and you don't have a tiebreaker, a great arbiter, the great poobah that says sales, you're at fault, or marketing, you're at fault, and here's the consequence, then it's going to be pointless. But that's what an SLA is. The beauty is, once you do that, it's like you've got it. You've got the dogma that the whole company needs to go by. Yeah. And you do some marketing, do your campaigns using this, sales, do your selling and objection handling and value props using this. And everybody knows and understands the expectations and the consequences.
True. A very small hack that I use personally that I just want to share to probably see if sales and marketing are aligned is that if sales team is using the content generated by marketing to reach out to people. If you think about it, largely we are writing content on the marketing side just to make sure that we create value and we educate the users and move them from tofu to bofu. Yep. Right at the end of the day.
Yep.
If the sales people can't use it in their reach outs at certain stages of their reach out or nurturing, it becomes very difficult to align and say that, okay, what marketing is doing is completely different to what sales has been targeting. Is that something that you have looked into?
Yeah, and that's actually one of the things I said when you look for those soft signs. I said, go talk to the sales folks and ask them what content they're using from sales and what do they like, or maybe presentations. And if they're using their own sales created content as opposed to marketing created content, as an example, or they can't tell you what content they like that marketing makes, then you've got yourself a serious problem. I'll give you an example. This true stories happened in my sales org in the last year or so, without naming names. We make a lot of content. We've won a ton of awards for our content. We're really good at content. That sounds obnoxious, but we're really good at it. And there you go. And because of that, and our content is all geared like by segment and by ICP and by persona, like top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. It's hyper intellectual and logical. Okay, that's the setup. I had a sales leader in the organization trying to be helpful, and they shared on a Slack channel for their sales team, here's a great article on the difference between sales engagement and sales enablement. That question comes up a lot because they sound similar. We do engagement, we don't do enablement. If anybody asks, here's the article. Boom. Sounds like a great thing, right? The sales leaders try to be helpful. Guess what? That article they shared was from our competition. That's the first bad thing. Even worse though, we have a piece of content that does this. Even worse, if you Google, sales engagement versus sales enablement, we rank #1 with that content.
Yeah.
And my own sales leader didn't know we had that content.
Yeah.
So that's an example. Then you go, how the hell did this happen? Like, we're making great content. The next thing, we do our own podcast, just like you're doing here. We do our own podcast, and the podcast is designed to help our sales reps close deals. They would learn. It's a sales podcast, so they can learn their sales skills, but they're selling to sales people, so they can say, "Oh, you have this problem? You should go listen to Darryl talk to so and so. I'll send it to you." And those all become ebooks, and they become blog posts. You don't have to listen. You don't have to watch. You can read whatever you want. And when I would poll my sales reps saying, "What's your top 3 podcasts in the last 12 months?" They never had an answer, or their answer was the very last one that was published, because that's all they could remember.
Yeah.
So what we started doing was we made a book club, right? So every Friday, the reps had to submit a review of that week's podcast. They had to do a video, they had to post it on our Slack channel, and everybody had to comment on everybody else's reviews. Just 2-minute review, what they liked, what they didn't like, what they agreed with, what they didn't agree with, the lesson they took away from it, and how it's going to change their process. And because they had to do that, they started to know our content. So It's a huge problem, massive, massive, massive problem. And it's more incumbent on the marketing people to push the salespeople to do it, but sales leadership also need to test their people and train their people on it. Another way around that is using sales enablement tools. Like we signed up and we use Seismic, but there's lots out there, HighSpot, others, Big Tin Can, so that it becomes part of the process of selling, because using tools like Seismic, not only can I share content, but I can track when it's been opened, when it's been shared. Those become triggers for me in sales to say, I better respond now. So, and it can recommend, based on this title on this industry, and where you are in the sales cycle, these are the pieces of content you may want to consider sharing. So tools like that make a big difference, but it's what you do, because if you don't do it, you're spending all this money on content and not using it. That's not a good ROI.
Definitely. I can relate completely to that example that you gave from your own experience about someone from your own company. It's not, in my experience and the way I have talked to people, right? It's not only limited to, other people in the management. But I have seen it's also being very relevant to senior leadership. What I really want to put up here is that I have seen senior leadership prioritizing one function over another. And
Yes.
most of the cases, it's sales over marketing.
Yes.
They think of marketing as a support function to sales, because ultimately the goal is revenue, and everyone thinks that sales is the one driving the revenue. So marketing is considered as support. Do you think that this also creates misalignment and creates the gap if the senior leadership is thinking like that?
Yes, it's massive. It is beyond massive. And in fact, I've gotten to the point that whenever I'm looking for a job, or I'm being recruited for a job, or friends of mine are being recruited for a job, they're looking for a job, is I actually coach them on this, on asking senior management, trying to discern if there is a bias there. What's the role of sales? What's the role of marketing? Is there an SLA in place? How long is that person, the head of, is there a CRO? Does that CRO come from a sales background, a services background, a marketing background? Like, talk to me about this. And because the reason is, if you're, for example, a marketer and they are biased towards sales over and over again, there's a good chance they don't even understand what the hell it is you do, not even what you do. And you're going to be annoyed and frustrated and ticked off, and you're not going to be satisfied, and you're going to ultimately leave for your next job. So that's not good. Churn is not good for the company. It's not good for you. So bias can exist most ways. It does mostly bias towards sales, because historically, the career path has always been go into sales, become a head of sales, VP of sales, hit crazy numbers in revenue targets. Way to go. Therefore, now you're a leader you're the CEO. And because you're the CEO because you understand what it means to drive revenue. And therefore, because you're the CEO, the lion's share of your own personal knowledge, your knowledge and expertise and familiarity is not in development. It's not in support. It's not in customer success. It's not in quality assurance. It's not in communications. It's not in marketing. It's in sales. So you always default to what you know. It's because you know it best. And you tend to be loyal, right? Oh, those are my buds. Those are my pals. That's my tribe. So I'm going to protect them at all costs, because that's what we sales reps do. It's a rogue culture, and it's annoying as hell, and it's actually works against them. I do see it changing dramatically. I'm seeing a different generation coming in who were raised on the internet, the millennials, the gen, was it post millennials? I don't know. I lose the terms anymore. But where the quality of social and reputation and influence and having a side hustle and actually, having a personal brand are just part of what they know and do. It's in their DNA. And so it's changing. It's totally changing. But yeah, you want to look for that in an organization. You absolutely, I'll be candid with you. When I first, about a year before I became CRO, I could see there was some trouble. And I went into the CEO's office and I said this. I said, hey, if you're ever thinking of making a move, I'm going to put my hand up to say, I would be willing to be considered as a CRO. And the initial reaction was disbelief, maybe a little bit of laughter, maybe a little bit of mocking. I'm like, I've done this before 1,000 times. I've done sales. I'm living with salespeople every single day. I'm a sales expert.
Yeah, yeah.
And they laughed. Fast forward a year, and sometimes that's all it takes is 1 year. And all of a sudden they go, you know what? You're the right guy for the job. So it does suck. It does change. It does default towards sales. My only counsel to you folks is do your homework before you ever take the job, because chances of you changing their minds is highly unlikely once you're there.
Got it. Understood. Once you have also shared, right, while we have been discussing, you have been sharing the nuggets of how to bridge this gap. For example, defining an SLA, right, making sure that communication happens, right? You talked about how do you make sure that your salespeople are aware about the content that the marketing is producing, right?
Yep.
Are there any larger excels or different specific things that you would suggest on how this bridge, this gap can be bridged apart from these few things that you have already told us?
One piece of advice I give mostly to marketers, not to sales reps, but let me start with the marketers, and then I will give you some sales rep advice.
Sure.
Is I tell marketers, again, trying to get alignment, I try to help them understand what sales does, right? And I say, it's really easy for you to sit here and judge and say, oh, they're stupid. I can't believe they haven't followed up that lead. And I can't believe they didn't use that content. I can't believe they didn't use a referral. What were they thinking? Yeah. Morons, right? And I say, whoa. Have you ever sold? Have you ever picked up a phone and called a total stranger? Have you been swore at? Have you actually sat and done 100 dials in a day? Nope. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. So let's do this. We're going to do exchange. When you're in school, you could do exchange trips, maybe a student in a different land, maybe a different language or whatever, right? Yeah. When I was in grade 10, I was 15 years old. I'm an Anglophone, but I'm in Canada where we have Quebec, the province of Quebec, all French. So I went to Quebec for a month, and my counterpart in Quebec went to English-speaking Canada to my house for a month, right? And we lived a month in the other person's world, speaking their language, they're eating their food. Opens your eyes, let me tell you. So what I'll often do is I'll go to my sales counterparts and I say, listen, just for a week, or maybe two most. I don't want to affect the company's numbers. I want to do exchange. I want to take Susie from marketing and Bobby from sales, and I want to swap them. So Bobby learns what it's like to create a piece of content or to organize a webinar or to get on social media. And I want Susie to understand what it means to dial some calls and be on some sales calls and do some demos. And yeah, it's going to have an impact. They're not going to do a whole lot for 2 weeks. They're going to suck, but they're going to be way better afterwards. They need empathy. So I teach marketers and leaders, if you want to create alignment, do the exchange. So marketers have got to learn sales and what they do, and vice versa. I find sales reps, especially now, think they know marketing better than marketers do. Have you seen my open rates? Have you seen my emails? I said, your email is stupid, but it started off with a marketing qualified lead. You never would have emailed them. You never would have found them on your own. Yeah. So if you're so smart, let's go put you, and you can go and organize this trade show and see how it goes for you. So you got to create that empathy and that thing. But the best thing I tell marketers, especially, but this goes for sales reps too, because unless you're in leadership, this advice is uniform. You need to know the deals. I'll say the details, all the details of the top 5 to 10, but 5 major deals that are active in the pipeline right now. Where are they? What's the likelihood they're going to close? What are the objections? Who are the players? What have we done to influence the deal? What content have we used? What are the objections? What are the products? And if marketers can't be in a company meeting or a leadership team meeting and spew those facts better than sales, you're never going to have that alignment. And they're never going to progress in their career. They're never going to become a CRO. Similarly for sales, they need to understand the campaigns that marketing is doing and how they're reacting, how they're turning, what the content is, what the tactics are. They need to know it better than marketing. It sounds stupid, but if you make that happen, if you quiz your people, you drill it into them, what you're really doing is you're forcing these two disparate people to come together and talk and work together. because that's what you're doing. That's all. In the end, how do you get two warring factions to strike a peace treaty? You put them at a table for a week or two or a month and you make them talk. Yeah. That's all you're doing.
Yeah. No, I think I love that advice, right? One thing that you have told us is, in short, if I have to summarize, is basically creating empathy for each other, right?
Yes.
Mutual respect, that it's not that the grass is greener on the other side, it's equal hard work that both of you do, right? So creating that respect and empathy that you want to do. And then second is really understand the nuances as a leader of the top 5 or 10 deals that's happening in the pipeline. And actually, if I think through it now, the marketers should be able to drive that deal so as well, right? They should be able to say, hey, I've generated this pipeline. Why are you not closing it? What's blocking you, right?
Yes.
Right? Something like that.
Yes, because the marketers need to defend the spend, right? Like I said earlier, here's $1 million. Go do a whole bunch of marketing this year. But at the end of the year, I'm going to come back to you and say, what did I get from my $1 million? And that's why marketers need to know those deals. They need to know what's converting. They need to know if it's a messaging issue or not enough attempts or not a fast enough follow-up by the sales rep or whatever. Because there is a day of reckoning for a marketer where they have to say, that $1 million you gave me, this is what I did with it.
Got it. Just one last thing that I want to add overall, and I want to understand your experience about it, is do you think having a common technology stack also helps them align better? Or at least a technology stack that tries to wrap both of these departments as much as it can. It cannot cover everything, but whatever can be made common really helps both of these functions. Is that the case in your experience?
It is. And now, I'll use example of us, right? So we use HubSpot for marketing automation, but we don't use HubSpot for CRM. We use Salesforce.com for CRM, right? So in your example, I should probably have, just HubSpot or just Salesforce.com for marketing automation and for CRM for sales. I think the more important thing is everybody needs to understand the stack and how it works together. And that's why I think RevOps is so important. It used to be sales ops or marketing ops, and they were silos and they never talked. One lives in HubSpot, never talked to their counterpart who lives in HubSpot. I'm sorry, Salesforce.com, right? Yeah. Ever. Yeah. Maybe the sales ops teams have Gong, but they don't share the recordings with their marketing ops counterparts, and marketing can learn so much from those recordings. So RevOps is another way of creating the alignment. You're all one team. Here's the overall, cradle to grave tech stack. You create the workflows, the processes, so when something happens in one piece of technology, what the impact is on an adjacent piece of technology. And then you put all that in a common Slack channel so that everybody can kind of see the questions. Hey, this isn't working. Hey, how come that didn't work? And all of a sudden everybody starts to learn it and understand it. And it's a shared pain. That's one of the things I did when I became CRO. And what was really interesting was my CEO came back to me about a year later and he said, I never understood how much that affects our success. But I see the questions there all the time. And I had to make dedicated people to handle the questions and be responsive. So we weren't holding up marketing or we weren't holding up sales. We had resolution quickly to any issues. He goes, then he actually asked a really good question. He goes, is our process too complicated? Is it too text? Is it too convoluted? Is it too dependent? And I'm like, our tech stack, as far as the technology pieces we have, is really no different than anybody else our size. Yeah. Like we have a piece for this and a piece for that and a piece for this and a piece for that, but they all have to work together. But you see the consequences of it and why it's so important. You see the velocity it gives us, but you can also see it can hold us back. So yes, I think it's critical that everybody is aware of the tech stack, that's leveraging it, that you've got a single owner for it. That's why I'm a fan of RevOps. And RevOps has a seat at the table with sales and marketing. They're a trusted partner.
Makes sense. I really like that perspective of not looking at it from a technology stack, but from a single owner perspective, right?
Correct.
Both of that.
You got it.
Darryl, I must say that this 50-minute has been like a breeze. I am not sure if I was on the track. I just love to ask questions and really thank you for giving us such valuable insights. It was terrific.
Hey, I had a blast. A lot of fun.
Thank you, Darryl, for your time. This is your host, Ashish, signing off. See you next week with a brand new episode of Sales Gambit.